So, all right, well, welcome to tonight's general meeting. The voter services team members will be presenting on this year's state and local ballot issues. After we conclude our presentation, Pat Berger will briefly talk about the league's positions on these issues. We are recording, so please stay muted. We will have limited time for questions, but you can put your questions in the chat and we'll take a few questions after each section. So after like the state issues and then the Larimer issues. For the purposes of this particular educational session, we can't take questions about the league positions on the arguments or any arguments for or against these issues. If you're interested in support or opposition to these issues, that information can be found in the Blue Book. The order of tonight will be Ann Hall is going to kick us off talking about the two state issues. And she'll continue and talk about the Larimer County issues. Then Carol will talk about the city of Fort Collins. Gwen will cover the issue for Thompson School District. And I'll wrap it up with the town of Timnath's special election. So we do have a presentation. I'm going to share that with you now. And there it is. Okay. So to start us off, we have some information about Election Day. Election Day is Tuesday, November 4th. The ballots will be mailed starting on October 10th. That's in 3 days. The ballot drop boxes are open October 10th through November 4th, and the ballots have to be received by 7 p.m. on November 4th. The postmarks do not count as a receive date. So if you get close to the deadline, you may wish to make sure those get into a drop box instead. And I will send it over to Ann.
And you need to unmute.
That would help. Well, once again, we're going to start talking about state ballot issues. And you probably have noticed, if you've looked at your blue book or any information about the upcoming election, there are only two state issues this year, both tax related, both Tabor related. And that's by design of the state constitution. Off-year elections, the only types of issues that can be on the ballot are tax related. And the interesting thing is this year there are two versus last year there were 14 state issues. And I just keep thinking about how long general meetings were last year and how complicated ballot issues were last year. But it is not that way this year. So, a little background. Notice that these are, as I said, all Tabor related. And for those of you that, just to give us a little background information on Tabor, it requires that when the state provides voters with an estimate of revenue they'll collect on a ballot from any new or increased taxes and to refund any collected above the estimate. And so that has directly to do with Proposition MM. And then when the state reduces taxes in the future to prevent overcollection in future years, that doesn't necessarily directly relate. But then the last one asks voters to give permission to keep revenue that exceeds the estimate in the Blue Book and maintains taxes. And that directly affects Proposition LL. So, first of all, for both of these ballot issues are related to healthy school meals for all programs. Both of these propositions are very closely tied to one another. And so with proposition, the background for proposition LL goes back to 2022 with proposition FF. And that was passed in 2022 by 55% yes votes and 45% no votes. And that created the Healthy School Meals Program, free meals for public schools in Colorado. And it also, as a part of it, it did increase taxes paid by households earning more than $300,000 or above, and it uses those increased taxes for school meals for funding the HSMA program. Another important part of the background information here is that to qualify and opt into the Healthy School Meals Program, schools must participate in the federal National School Lunch Program that receive federal funding. And in addition to providing funding for healthy meals, the three other parts of HSMA are number one, purchasing homegrown food products as much as possible, providing higher wages for food nutrition employees, and offering training and equipment and technical assistance to support for more from scratch meals. They are really trying to focus on the healthy meals part of this. To date, the funding has gone toward the reimbursement for free school meals and administrative costs of the program. But Proposition LL would require $1 million to be spent on the programs that I was just talking to. And one of the reasons why the HSMA program was somewhat underfunded was it was very, very successful. And many more students were participating in the program for free lunches because there was no need for students to prove they met the requirements for free lunches. So therefore, schools were spending a lot more money on the free lunch program. So, what happens if it passes? If it passes, wait. No, we're going to wait. And I want a yes vote does mean that we keep the revenue and it funds the meal program. But a no vote means it will refund to high income households only, and the program will definitely be reduced. But that's also takes us over to Proposition MM. And Proposition MM is also very much related to, a part of HSMA, and it wants to make sure that healthy schools for healthy meals, school meals for all, still stays available if Proposition LL fails. So that's why these are two very closely related programs, ballot issues, excuse me. So Heather, do you want to go? Um, let me just look at my notes for one more moment in terms of Proposition MM. Um, so, okay. The HSMA program in Proposition MM is required to have at least $150 million in funding from new resources to continue offering meals to all public schools. And if LL or MM passes, this will ensure that the program continues. Now, if both pass, there will be additional money. And at that point, MM funds can be used for SNAP, the additional federal funding for free lunch programs. Um, and the the school meal reimbursements and local food purchasing programs and the meal and employee wages and technical assistance will be fully funded before any additional tax revenue is used for SNAP, which, by the way, stands for the Supplemental Nutritional a Food Program, which is a federal program. Um, so by reducing the state income tax deductions for households earning $300,000 a year or more, MM increases state revenues by 2026 for 2025-26 by $7 million and by 26-27 by $130 million. Only $95 million can be kept by the state and must be returned unless a measure is approved by the voters, as we are doing on voting on LL. For state spending review and how much the breakdown on how the increased revenues will be spent on the four elements of the programs, the Blue Book really does a very good job of spelling all this out. So I would hope that people would have a chance to take a look at that. So, Heather, can we go to what happens? Okay. All right. So, um, Heather, is there a way to increase the size of this chart? Because this chart is really very helpful. Um, Maybe not. Okay. Uh, Heather, well, as long as I guess if we get close enough, we can see it pretty clearly. And this really spells this out. First of all, um, Proposition FF, the healthy, oh, there it is. That's okay. Um, for Proposition FF in 2022, that is where all this started. And it was funded by limiting the deductions for high income households. So, um, therefore, and if this is, then we look at for Proposition LL and Proposition MM, just what I've been talking about. First of all, LL is a retention measure, which means it allows the state to keep the $12.4 million it has already collected, and it does maintain the deduction caps. All right. And Proposition MM is an expansion measure, and it raises an additional $95 million annually by further reducing deductions. So then we get down to the next tier, tier 3. All right. If LL fails, the funds are refunded and the caps reduced. Okay. But if it passes, funds remain and HSMA program becomes stable. And that's a big, big, important part of this measure. Now, if MM passes, HSMA becomes fully funded and any surplus can go to SNAP. But if it fails, partial funding only, and the whole HSMA program is scaled back. So the best thing would be, as we look at this, if in terms of healthy school meals for all, is if both LL and MM pass, then the state keeps 12.4 million and raises 95 million more each year, fully funding healthy school meals for all, and it may provide additional funding to cover SNAP depending on the funds that are available. But if both fail, $12.4 million is refunded, no new revenue is raised, and the Healthy School Meals for All program will be limited only to students in under-resourced areas. And that kind of takes us back to where school lunch funding was before Proposition FF in 2022. So that takes us to the end of our 2 state issues. And do we have questions about what these 2 issues entail?
And I'm not seeing any questions in the chat, but maybe if somebody thinks of one, maybe we can cover it after the Larimer County issues.
Okay. All right. So then that takes me to something completely different, and that is the state of the issues on the Larimer County ballot. And let me get my notes available for that. All right. And so for the first one, it is a 0.15% tax for 2026 through 2040. Just to put that in perspective, and I think as we go through and talk about this, that would mean approximately a 15%, a 15-cent tax on $100 purchases with lots of exemptions that I'll talk about in a little while. It will fund roads, bridges, and transit access. It will exempt the things that will be exempt from being collected, taxes being collected on are food, fuel, prescriptions, machine tools, manufactured homes, and farm equipment. So then the question is, why on the ballot? Well, to me, as I research this, there are really 3 basic reasons why. Currently, only a small portion of property taxes is allocated to road improvements amounting to about 75 cents per month on a $600,000 home. There is no dedicated sales tax supporting the county's transportation network, and a local sales and use tax would help close the funding gap. It would improve access to state and federal infrastructure grants, and it would support cost-effective long-term improvements. And over a period of years, as Larimer County has surveyed its citizens, the residents have said that safe travel, emergency access, and congestion relief are top priorities. And if this measure passes, it will give the county the ability to do that by improving safety for motorists, pedestrians, and cyclists, increase emergency readiness and reliability for first responders, reduce congestion and travel delays throughout the county, leverage matching grants to stretch taxpayer dollars, and then make long-term infrastructure investments now to avoid higher costs later. So that's, and I would put myself in this category when I was reading about this. A recent community survey indicated that many residents were not initially aware of the county's transportation funding gap, but yet we place high priority on safe travel in our county. So that is Larimer County Transportation Sales Tax 1A. And that leads us then to the Larimer County 1B, the child care preschool sales tax. Notice it's 0.25 sales tax, and it will fund tuition help, quality, teacher pay, classroom resources, and capacity. And the exemptions are similar to 1A. So, what's behind this? And again, it was very informative for me to really kind of dig in and realize this. First of all, it is something that the county and early childhood council people and people in the whole early childhood community have been talking about doing for years. But throughout the last several years, it kept getting put on the back burner because there were so many other tax issues that had to be had to be covered. And so now it is determined that we need a strategic plan that includes a directive to increase capacity in child care programs. And in 2021, the county convened a steering committee to how to improve access and affordability to high quality care. And they found, and I think we have all heard about this not only in our own county but nationwide, a significant gap between the demand for and the availability of childcare in preschool in Larimer County. And the committee concluded that many parents are unable to afford to continue working when the cost of childcare exceeds what they make. And I have heard people talk to me about that many times. Here's what is needed to fill the gap between the number of children with all parents working and the number of child care slots. According to information presented to commissioners, at least 3,000 additional slots to serve infants and children up to 24 months and 2,500 more spaces for kids ages 2 to 5. um, and continuing contributing to the problem is retention of workers. And early childhood educators are among some of the lowest paid workers in the United States. And the aim of the commission and this ballot measure is to fix that. We have been trying as a county to address this since 2021, but now this has taken on and become a focus and is now a ballot measure. And so that's information about Larimer County 1B, the child care preschool sales tax. So, are there questions about this one?
Doesn't look like it, Ann.
Okay. These are pretty straightforward. Okay. With that point, if there are no questions, I'm going to now say to our friends from Estes Park, if you would, we're now going to go to Fort Collins, Loveland, Timnath, and so if you would like to stay with us, that's great. But maybe you would like to do something else with the rest of your evening. And so with that, I'm now going to turn it over to Carol Gershich, who's going to do Fort Collins issues. Carol.
Hello. So the 2A is a sales tax measure, and so it is covered with some detail in the county blue book, which has a white cover. Mine came in this week along with my state blue book, so it will have a little bit more information. And also, if you want more detail on any of the city issues, you could find it on the agendas of the City of Fort Collins City Council meetings. There's a big packet of information that the City Council members get in preparation for meetings, and that's all available online. For past meetings, you can still access it. So, like if you wanted to know specifically how much money was being allocated for one of the specific items in this, I think that's covered in the city council meeting packet. So anyway, so 2A is to continue an existing sales tax that goes to fund capital projects. So it's the Community Capital Improvement Project. So Fort Collins has been using a voter-approved sales and use taxes to fund major capital projects since 1973. And some of the past projects funded were the Old Town Library, the City Hall, the Lincoln Center, and the Mulberry Pool. So the current tax will expire at the end of this year, December 31st, 2025. The proposal is to continue this, which is a 0.25% or 25 cents on a $100 purchase for 10 years. The average financial impact on a person would be $33.22 per person per year. And the proposal identifies how the funds would be used. So this is not raising additional taxes. It is continuing an existing tax. There are some items that are exempt, prescription drugs, diapers, groceries, and some other things that the state exempts from sales taxes. So the revenue would go for the planning, design, purchase of real property, and construction of the items that are listed in the measure, and also to pay 5 years of operation and maintenance fees for some of the projects. So the projects included in this measure are pedestrian sidewalks, arterial intersection improvements, and the streetscapes program, bicycle infrastructure and overpass, underpass programs, the Affordable Housing Capital Fund, the Mulberry Pool Replacement Leverage Fund. I'm not sure what a leveraging fund is, but that's in there. The Poudre River North area, parks, trails, access, composting infrastructure, a shop for the Parks Department in the downtown area, not like a store, but I mean a workshop kind of thing. A community bike park, an outdoor pickleball complex with courts, the Nature in the City program, transport bus replacement and stop enhancement, recreational paved trails, construction waste diversion equipment, the historic trolley building renovation, a children's garden and infrastructure at the gardens on Spring Creek, the Lee Martinez Farm, a renovation and expansion of that, and the Timberline Recycling Center, some improvements and infrastructure there. So if this measure is passed, the existing 0.25% sales and use tax will be extended for 10 years to fund these projects. And if it is defeated, then this tax will expire and these projects will either be canceled or postponed. So the next 6 are all charter amendments. And so for the first one, 2A, it's the August 19th City Council meeting that has reference to that issue. The July 1st City Council meeting deals with all these charter amendments. So kind of as background, in the city charter was set up in 1954, and it has not had a major revision for about 25 years. So in 2024, the council instructed staff to start going through the charter to see what sections were obsolete, what things were not compliant with state law, what things were difficult to read and understand or were inconsistent with other parts. So all the amendments to the charter we had last year and all of these are all part of this ongoing program. So 2B is to address Articles 2, 9, and 10 to correct errors and make the charter conform to some of the amendments that we adopted a year ago. So it clarifies that a registered elector must notify the city clerk before seeking a court determination to challenge the qualifications of any member of the council. It updates the language about counting votes in a specific race so that it's consistent with the new ranked voting rules that we adopted last November. And it restores the number of days for a signature gatherer to circulate an initiative petition, increasing it from 63 days to 77 days. Apparently, some of the changes we made last year reduced that inadvertently. So because it's the city charter, these corrections can only be made with approval from voters. So a yes vote will amend the charter in these ways, and a no vote means that these inconsistencies will remain and that the petition signature gathering period will stay at 63 days. So that was 2B. So 2C is amending the charter to modernize and update it by reformatting, updating language for ease of reading and clarity, eliminating inapplicable or invalid provisions. So it includes changing the words shall to will, must, or may, or other words to improve clarity, making the language inclusive by taking out the words he and she and related word forms. It divides sections into subsections and adds titles to subsections to make them easier to read and understand. It eliminates some transitional provisions. There was one that addressed residency requirements for city department heads appointed prior to March 6, 1985, which are no longer relevant. And it set a mill levy cap on the council adopting taxes, which is now irrelevant because with Tabor, they have to have voter approval to adopt ones. There were also some sections that it provided for transition from prior charters, and they're not relevant anymore. It also renumbers and updates the cross references sections in the charter. So a yes vote means that these changes are made. A no vote means the language stays as it is, and there are some obsolete provisions. So again, if you wanted to see in detail exactly what the changes are that are proposed, I'm pretty sure that, all of it word for word is in that city council meeting on July 1st. So moving on to 2D. So this is amending articles to modernize publication requirements and requirements for adopting ordinances. So it revises the section related to adopting ordinances, resolutions, and motions to improve clarity and readability by adding subsections, subsection titles, and better organizing them. It removes language that entitles any council member to request that an entire ordinance be read aloud at a council meeting when copies of the full proposed ordinance were available at the city clerk's office 48 hours prior to the meeting. It allows an ordinance to be adopted even if publication of the ordinance was not timely, so long as all of the other notice requirements were met. It allows late publication of an ordinance after final passage if publication is completed within a reasonable period of time. It delays the effective date of the ordinance until the publication requirements are met. It delays the deadline to file a notice of referendum protest. It requires that notices be published on the city's website and posted at City Hall instead of being published in the local newspaper legal notices section. And it adds a new section to apply deadlines throughout the charter in the manner that was adopted a year ago. So again, if this is approved by voters, these changes will be made. If not, the language and format will stay as they are, and the existing requirements on publication and adoption of ordinances will remain. So the next one is 2E, and there have been some changes to state law, and now some sections of our city charter are not consistent with that. And some changes in how law is applied have also made some of the regulations inconsistent. So this would improve consistency with the laws and minimize conflicts from a legal standpoint. So the major provisions are that it continues to prohibit a political party, a public service corporation, or persons or entities with city contracts from contributing to any city council election, while recognizing that some speech is protected by the U.S. Constitution or the Colorado Constitution. It specifies which city employees are prohibited from contributing to council elections to be consistent with state law, and proposed changes in Article 2. It revises Article 2 to incorporate state law provisions related to city council executive sections. And it revises Article 4 to clarify that city records are open for public inspection and disclosure consistent with state open records laws. So if passed, these changes to the charter will go through. If it is not passed, there will be some inconsistencies in the charter. So 2G is related to vacancies. Let's see, did I go to F? Yes, so 2F is conflict of interest. So the update was suggested because standards related to conflict of interest have kind of changed. And there are some situations where the current standards were limiting the city's ability to carry out some actions that would have been beneficial to the city. So this would allow council members or the mayor to sell real property to the city if it is needed for a city project or public use, but they must disclose the conflict and not be involved in the decision. It also allows city employees to rent city-owned property with the city manager approval if it benefits the city and is related to their job duties. So if we vote yes, the charter will be updated with safeguards in place regarding conflict of interest. If it's turned down, then the current conflict of interest rules will remain in place. So 2G changes how city council vacancies are filled. The current regulations on filling city council vacancies do not reflect some recent changes in the election calendar, and they can leave a council seat empty for more than 160 days. So these changes also clarify term limits. So they state that serving more than half a term counts as a full term for term limits. When a district council seat becomes vacant, the city will post the vacancy on its website and accept applications. The council must appoint a replacement within 35 business days. The seat will then appear on the next regular municipal election ballot that meets requirements. If the mayor's seat becomes vacant, the mayor pro tem becomes the acting mayor. The council will elect a new mayor pro tem, and the council will fill the district seat that is vacated by the acting mayor, becoming acting mayor. So temporary council appointments end when the acting mayor returns to their original seat or when the original term ends. And if no candidate qualifies for a ballot seat, then the new council will appoint someone to fill it. So those are all of the ballot issue ones. And as I said, they are referenced in the city council meeting. So now we go to what's up next? Hughes tract measures. So there are two of these. And you may be saying, didn't we vote on this already? So yes, they are related to what we voted on in 2021. So what is referred to as the Hughes Stadium tract is a tract of land on the west side of Fort Collins. It is west of Overland Trail between Prospect and Drake Road. And it used to house the Colorado State University football stadium. So CSU built a new stadium on campus, and in 2018, they demolished the old stadium out there on the west side of town. So that land became available for other purposes, and CSU was investigating different kinds of development options. But in 2021, a citizens group that was called Planning Action to Transform Hughes Sustainably, or PATS for short, collected signatures for a petition that required the city council to purchase the land and zone it as public open land used for parks, recreation, natural areas, wildlife rescue, and education. So that measure was approved by voters in 2021. The city of Fort Collins did purchase the tract of land in 2023 and then started soliciting input on its use. So in 2024, one of the priorities for the council was to develop a master plan for the development of the Hughes Stadium tract. So there are two measures. One is 2H, which is the measure that the council has put forward based on their soliciting of community input on how do you want this tract to be used. 303 is the same organization, Paths, has submitted a new petition that they got signatures for, which would require rezoning the entire tract as natural area. So there are some differences in terms of what can be done with the land. So the city council measure would include a city natural area. Size is not specified, but up to 60 acres. A dedicated space and facilities for environmental education and wildlife conservation to include wildlife rescue and rehabilitation, up to 30 acres. A trail system through the site connected to nearby city natural areas and parks. A city park with a community bike park up to 35 acres. A community gathering area and related facilities. There is the possibility that they could continue the existing disc golf and winter sledding. So a disc golf course and winter sledding have been on that site for years and years and years. CSU allowed it. There was an area that is part of a water retention basin, and so CSU didn't use it for the stadium or for the event parking that was there. So it was used for the years and years and years is my understanding, probably 30, 40 years for event park, for disc golf and sledding in the winter. And those could be continued. It's not specified that they have to be. So the rezoning to completely natural area would require that all of the tract be a natural area managed by the City of Fort Collins Natural Areas Department. The area would be protected for ecological and wildlife habitat restoration. Uses are to conserve or improve the land for natural resource use, agricultural use, and scenic beauty uses. And it allows low impact recreation such as walking, hiking, biking, wildlife viewing, bird watching, fishing, and educational programs. So funding for habitat restoration would come from the Natural Areas Department. So these are both on the measure, on the ballot. If the council measure passes with more votes than the 303 citizen measure, then it will stay zoned as open public land, and the specific plan for development that is in 2H will go into effect with all of those specific uses. If the citizen measure 303 is passed with more votes than 2H, then it will be rezoned as natural area and have uses restricted to natural area, which is listed there. If they both fail, then the land will stay zoned as public open land, but the specific plan for development that is in the 2H will not be implemented. So the city council would have to then come up with a new plan for how it to be used. I'm not sure how they would do that. So if they both fail, then it stays public open land, but it won't have this specific 2H set of components in the development. If they're both passed, then it depends which one passes with more votes, and that one will take effect. And if one passes and one fails, then whichever one passes, passes. Okay, so on to 302. So this is another tax measure. So again, it is also in the white blue book for the county. It is not a new tax. It is extending an existing tax. The city of Fort Collins has had an open space tax for, let's see, since the 90s. Where is it? Too many notes, sorry. 1992. So anyway, this is a 0.25%, so 25 cents on a $100 purchase. And it was set up in 1992 to fund natural areas and open space. That particular measure was a 10-year measure, and it was extended in 2002 for 25 years. So the current expiration would be in 2030. So this is a citizen petition. The originators of the petition felt that giving the city some time to anticipate what was going to happen with funding might be helpful to the city. They also wanted to explore making this a permanent tax. So there's no sunset on this measure. The rationale behind it is that this is the only source of funding for natural areas and open space. And the city could leverage the money more effectively if they knew they had a permanent funding source. Part of what they do is purchase areas that they want to preserve as open space. And they might know of a landowner who is not ready to sell yet. They're not ready to, retire and move to Arizona. But if the city knew that they might consider it in 5 or 10 years and they knew that they had funding available in 5 or 10 years, they might start negotiations on that. But if you don't know if your funding is going to be available, then it's a little hard to do that. So anyway, there are a couple of changes to the tax structure. The revenues will include being used for acquiring, operating, and maintaining natural areas, open spaces, community separators, wildlife habitat, river and stream corridors, wetlands, and biodiverse landscapes. It will clarify some of the language from the original initiative to reflect the current policies and practices of the Natural Areas Program. Land conservation activity will be defined to include improving acquired lands for ecological health. And in general, funds will also support public access, recreation, and education on the open space areas. And starting in 2061, there would be a little shift in how the funds are distributed. So starting in January 2061, at least 70% of revenue would have to be spent on land conservation activities. Currently, that's 80%. And again, beginning in 2061, no more than 30% can be spent on operations and maintenance, and that's currently capped at 20%. So if we vote yes, then this existing 0.25% sales and use tax with funds going to the natural areas open space will be continued without a sunset. And if we vote no, then this will continue for at least another couple of years, and there may be a measure in a few years to extend it for a limited time. We don't know. So that is the end of the City of Fort Collins ones. Are there any questions on those? I see some stuff.
There aren't any questions specific to that. There was a question about whether we'll cover the positions and Thompson School District, and then a question about Wellington. So you could take a look in there. All right.
Okay, I'm Gwen, and I'm going to talk to you about the Thompson School District Measure 5A. This is with no expected increase in the district's current property tax debt service mill levy rate. Shall Thompson School District R2J debt be increased to $99 million, with repayment costs not to exceed $195 million, including the principal and interest, to finance capital assets and improvements to the district. What are the major provisions? The $99 million bond measure would continue the current tax rate that was originally set with the 2005 bond. It will distribute $35 million for critical needs to renovate and repair district's most outdated school buildings by replacing and repairing roofs, flooring, mechanical, electrical, and HVAC systems. It would distribute $10 million for safety and security. It would update emergency communication equipment, security cameras, and add more security vestibules for the entrance into schools. It would distribute $54 million for future planning, used to expand and update facilities to accommodate growth and education needs in the Berthoud area. As currently with the current bond issue, this also establishes an independent oversight committee that is composed of community members and Thompson School District personnel that will provide oversight and report back to all funds spent. A little bit of background on this. In 2018, which was the last time Thompson School District passed a bond issue, that will expire at the end of 2025. If passed, this new bond will retain that same bond tax rate that has been imposed since 2005. The district still has many urgent needs due to its aging buildings and population change. Thompson School District actually has $730 million of needs for building and maintenance. So why is the district only asking for 99 million? In 2024, Thompson School District did propose a $220 million bond, which was declined by the voters. With that vote, the Thompson School District decided we still do have some critical needs. And they decided to look to see how much they could ask for while maintaining the same tax rate, and came up with the $99 million bond question. So what are some of the examples of the critical needs? The district has numerous buildings with aging HVAC systems that are in need of repair or replacement. Thompson's district actually had to release school students early in August when the temperatures were in the high 90s. Recently, with all the rains, they have also had roofs leaking through to the classrooms, especially in one of the older school buildings of Loveland High School. In a recent Reporter Herald article, we learned that Loveland High School had a parent that won a court case concerning the lack of American Disability Act compliance issues. Our superintendent, Brett Hellier, said that these urgent accessibility needs are being fixed using funds that they received from a sale of Monroe Elementary School and other funds that the district was able to find in their budget. Currently, the district is in the process of evaluating all their schools to make sure that they meet all ADA requirements for accessibility. And this will be a high priority for fixing when they identify other needs. So some people may ask, I see my property taxes are still going up every year. Why does the school still need more funds? The way this Colorado school finance bill is set up, it's set with a minimum funding level for each school district's needs, the per pupil funding. The state balances the funds that all schools receive by looking at how much the district brings in local property tax. And then it backfills this funding so that each district maintains the same minimum level of funding. But when a school district brings in more fund from their local property tax, the state says, oh, you have more funds. That means the state does not have to give you as much. So they balance it out. If you have more funds, the state provides less. If you have less funds, then the state provides more. Therefore, the level of funding remains the same. It's just how is the funds cut up. Secondly, the funds that come from the general operation funds don't cover all the maintenance needs, which is why Thompson School District is now asking for ballot issue 5A to be passed so we can fund them, or they can fund the most critical needs, which we've talked about already. So a yes vote means they will keep the current bond tax rate and provide 99 million for repairs, added safety, and for school expansion. And that is mostly in the Berthoud area. A no vote means the property tax bond levy will actually decrease when the 2018 bond is retired. The Thompson School District does have a website, the tsdbond.org, and right at the top they have a ribbon that goes over the bond issue, so you can actually take a look and see what schools will get which fundings, and it kind of describes the bond a little bit more in detail. Are there any questions around the Thompson School District bond? If not, I'll have Heather with Timnath.
So we're going to have Steva, baked potato, and green beans. You want?
Sounds like somebody is not muted. If you could double check that everyone is muted. Let's see. Here we go. Okay. So we did have a question in the chat about the Wellington Fire Protection District. And apologies for not having a slide for that, but we can talk about that really quickly because it's another fairly straightforward tax measure. So the Wellington Fire Protection District is asking voters to consider ballot issue 6D, which is a proposed 0.5% sales tax increase. The fire district covers about 288 square miles, including the town of Wellington and nearby unincorporated areas in Larimer County. Some background on the issue. They say that since 2015, calls for service have grown by more than 65%, and their equipment costs have risen 30 to 50% since 2020. And then the area is also experiencing population growth, adding to the demand for emergency services. They did, traditionally, the district's funding came from property taxes, but reductions in the statewide property tax assessment rates have limited the revenue. So in 2024, a new state law allows special districts like fire districts to ask voters for local sales tax to help maintain state service levels. So this, the Wellington Fire Protection District ballot issue 60 would establish a 0.5% sales tax, having the same non-exempt goods and to be used for equipment replacement, facility improvements, and other related fire needs. So a yes vote on this one supports creating a local sales tax for the Wellington Fire Protection District. And a no vote would mean that the district will continue operating with the current funding sources, primarily property taxes, without an additional sales tax revenue. So getting into Timnath for my Timnath friends. So the town of Timnath doesn't usually have a November election. This is a special election that they're doing in coordination with Larimer County. They're trying, so this is outside of the normal April elections. Some background on Measure 3A, which is a sales tax for a recreation center. So the town of Timnath has a new Parks and Recreation Department established in 2023 to oversee more than 1,200 acres of parks, trails, playgrounds, and open spaces. Timnath is a rapidly expanding area. It's grown about 80% since 2020 and has about 12,000 residents. Continued growth of around 10% per year is expected in the coming years. Timnath does not have a town-owned indoor recreation center, and they would like to propose to build a 109,000 square foot facility that would include, the pictures on the screen are an artist's rendering. The design of this would be funded through this new sales tax. But they would like to include fitness, aquatic areas, indoor courts, classrooms, community rooms, childcare spaces, and an outdoor gathering area. The estimated cost of this project is approximately $98 million. Funding would come from a combination of the voter-approved sales and use tax increase, and would they're projecting that in the first year, revenue would be around $9 million. They would possibly use certificates of participation and developer impact fees to enable them to start construction before the full amount has been raised. So under this proposal, they would raise a new sales tax of 1.25% beginning on January 1st, 2026. So that's about 12.5 cents on every $10 spent. And the rate would continue for 30 years through December 31st, 2056, but could end sooner if they pay off the debts associated with the construction of the rec center sooner. And then after that, the tax would drop to 0.25% to continue funding the operation and maintenance for the recreation center. The tax would not apply to items exempt under state law, like prescription medications, diapers. And unlike a property tax, they've decided to try for a sales and use tax for this, meaning it would collect revenue not only from residents, but also from visitors and shoppers from outside of Timnath. And the town estimates that about 85% of sales at major local retailers come from non-residents. So there is Timnath. And yes vote, no vote. Yes vote means that that the town would introduce the new 1.25 sales tax in order enabling them to fund the construction and operation of a new recreation center. And then with the agreement that the sales tax would drop to 0.25% as an ongoing tax for maintenance. And a no vote means that that there would be no sales tax increase. The town's sales tax rate will remain the same, and the proposed recreation center would not move forward. And let's check the chat. Okay. Well, so before we conclude tonight, I just wanted to have a huge thank you and shout out to Carol and Gwen for presenting tonight, and for setting up this presentation, and Carol and all of her team of researchers and writers for writing all of the ballot issue summaries that we used as the source material for this presentation. More resources, I have a whole list of them. So if you are looking for more information before you get your ballots, the local ballot issues pamphlets and the state ballot issues pamphlets are going to be available. Usually we would pass them out at this presentation, but since we ended up with a Zoom presentation, you'll need to visit a library or senior center, or there's a variety of places around the community, or you can send me an email and I will let you know where to grab one of those. Vote411.org. Please make sure that you visit vote411.org. It is up, and that's an easy one to share with your family, your friends, your neighbors. If you're unfamiliar with Vote 411, you put in your address and it brings up ballot issue information and candidate information specific to your ballot. And then a couple other online resources. You can go to the league websites, especially if you would like more information about the league stances on these. And ballot tracks, if you haven't signed up for ballot tracks, to keep track of your ballot, to see when it gets mailed to you, and to track its journey back to get counted. And let's see. And then our candidate forum videos. So we have hosted 4 candidate forums. We had Fort Collins Mayor, Fort Collins Council, a joint forum for Loveland Mayor and Council, and then one for Poudre School District. Those videos will be available both on vote411.org and on the Larimer County League's website. Any resources that I've missed? And then go Vote Colorado to check your registration. And I think that will wrap it up for voter services. So that concludes the voter service